So if I have a net wealth of $100,000, for example, I must pay 2.5% of that, $2,500 annually. So it varies depending upon my net wealth. Then the second part is sadaqah, is a daily thing. And the good Lord says, always share your wealth with orphans, the needy, the homeless, the disabled, those who cannot ask out of their personal thing, they will not ask. But we have to really understand fellow human beings, see who has the need, and we have to help them. So this is a very ongoing thing. In Islam, this is a very important pillar. When it is combined with worship, is made equal to worship. Worshiping God, giving charity to humans, they're almost together. And therefore, and then the good Lord also says, both the positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. God says, giving charity is like giving a loan to God. You give me a loan. I mean, if you give charity to humans, it's like loaning money to God. God says, I'll return it manifold, many times over. And that comes in the form of cleansing the soul, shining the soul to go to paradise. And therefore, that's the positive reinforcement. The negative reinforcement is, in another verse in the Quran, God says, not giving charity is a sin. And you will be punished on the day of judgment. You'll be accounted for. So there are, from both sides, charity is a must for a Muslim. So, without going into too many details, probably during question and answer sessions, I was told 3 to 5 minutes. How is it managed? The compulsory 2.5%, in some of the Muslim countries, the government collects from the people. And then the government distributes to the needy. In some other countries, organizations, local organizations, collect 2.5%. In America, we have 5, 6 Muslim organizations who collect the 2.5% and distribute all over the world. And many Muslims, especially the newer ones, they send their 2.5% back home to their little charities that they used to do back home. And there are all kinds. The largest organization in America, Islamic Society of North America, they collect a lot of this money and they send all over the world. And therefore, individually, locally, we also have organizations. We have Muslim organizations. We collect money and we distribute. Many projects, including floods here and there and all that. Therefore, charity is a must in Islam. It is in our blood as Muslims, and we have to do it. And finally, there is an organization now called Muslim Philanthropist International. And I'm really excited about it. It's about 3-year-old organizations. There are billionaires in there from around the world. And they really want to put their money in and spread all over the. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. From the other end of the Abrahamic tradition, I might ask Rabbi Rapport to do the same and to tell us a bit about philanthropy as an ongoing call in the Jewish tradition.
Thanks, Tim. Good morning. The similarities, I hope, will strike you, even the actual words. The Hebrew word for tzedakah comes from the root for charity, and it not only sounds, it is the same as the Arabic word. The concepts are close, but I wanted to kind of take just a few minutes. I mentioned attorney. I can't clear my throat in 3.5 minutes, but I'm going to try to do the short form, and you can ask questions afterwards. We'll just open the door to a brief discussion of the roots of charity within Judaism. The word tzedakah, which is our word for roughly translated charity, doesn't come from the same root. The word charity comes from the Greek root caritas, which comes from the word for love. The word tzedakah comes from the Hebrew word tzedek, which is the word for justice. And if you think about that for a second, you'll see the difference. This is where the concept of obligatory giving comes from, because it's not yours to give to someone else. It's theirs. It's their right. And that core sort of perspective is where the expectation and obligation of charitable giving sort of finds its roots in the beginning. So deeply set within Judaism is this concept of tzedakah. The actual word for a righteous person, a good person, is a tzaddik. A tzaddik, from the same root as of justice, is a person who gives tzedakah. A person who gives charity is definitionally a righteous person. So the only question now is, are you a righteous person? And if you are, then the easiest way to tell that is because you're the kind of person who gives. And this also, I hope, gives you a context that, from a Jewish perspective, both the obligation and the good deed and the righteous act of giving is all a function of the giver and the means by which they give, which is, I think, a different perspective than maybe the American model of charity navigator and what percentage of the gift is going to be going to the cause at hand, and do I agree with the mission? You give. That defines who you are. How, you're supposed to give responsibly, but once you're sure that no one's like committing fraud with your gift, okay, past that, it's a question of your righteousness as a person who's willing to respond to a need. Now, the roots of tzedakah, like the roots of all righteous deeds in Judaism, come from Scripture. In biblical times, the economy was an agrarian economy, and so all of the obligatory giving was framed in agrarian terms. But over the generations of our people, they've been adjusted in various ways to create a charitable giving structure which is mandated within Jewish life. You'll find, if you really love reading the book of Leviticus, just so you should know, I'm Reformed Judaism's national expert on the book of Leviticus. It wasn't a tough competition, but they picked me. Okay. So there are really cool things in Leviticus, and among them are the foundational texts that have to do with charitable giving. So, pick up the book sometime. It's really well worth the read. A little slow, but well worth it. You might want to just jump ahead to chapter 23, though. That'll help. In chapter 23 of the book of Leviticus, verse 10, we read, "Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, when you come into the land that I give you, you shall reap the harvest thereof. Then ye shall bring the sheaf of the first fruits of the harvest unto the priest." So first fruits is one of the first concepts of tzedakah. And if you think about it, on the surface level, it sounds like it makes sense. You're bringing in a harvest, you bring your first fruits to God. It's part of your way of saying thank you for the role which is beyond your control in bringing forth the crops that are the bounty of your harvest. Having said that, think it through for a second. Let's just imagine that Hubers decided to give first fruits. Okay, and they were going to live this biblical thing in their lives. I mean, they're good folk. It's very possible they could do that. So they'd go out and collect all the green apples. See my point? Okay, why would we pick first fruits? The first fruits of the olive trees are the hard ones. Okay, the first fruits of the apple trees will be the sour ones. Why would we give God, what I would say would be the green fruit? Because it's first. Because before you take anything, before you think this is yours, part of it goes to charity. That concept matters more than the value of the material being given. It's that before you place this even into your own possession, you recognize that the creator of the universe had a role in that blessing in your life. And so you give back before you even take. Okay, because it's a reminder that it's not really yours. When I was a kid growing up in northern Michigan, the woman next door had this wonderful garden, and as she got older and I got stronger, I used to go over and help her harvest. She did all the work the rest of the year, but I helped her harvest. And in upper Michigan, you can basically only grow root vegetables because the ground is really sandy. And she'd go through, like she'd have a row of potatoes or carrots or something, and I'd go through and pull them all up, and she'd go through, and out of the holes that I had pulled things up, she took the potato and dropped, cutting up the first potato, little pieces into the whole. And I asked her why she did that. And she said, because I want potatoes next year. And I said, no, why'd you use the first potato? And she hadn't really thought about it, but she always did, because she was giving back before she took. It's a simple analogy that should remind us that before we receive what we think we own, we should give back to what we didn't do ourselves.